it's not surprising that like let's say someone scored 5 wins, which is what happened actually.
Yeah.
Both Hikaru and Gukesh scored 5 wins. And if Hikaru had just not lost against Vidit, he lost 2 games, he would have been +5.
Yeah.
So actually, Hikaru, like to his credit, he did a great job of winning games. He created a lot of chances for himself. To his detriment, he did lose 2 quite poor games against Vidit. These were not good games. They were surprising for a player of his caliber, but everything else he did great. It was just like somehow he had this weakness against one player, which was probably just an accident, right? It's just he
Hikaru
had
was
a
a huge
bad day.
dilemma, right? For us, and I would assume for pretty much everybody during the candidates for every team, because I wouldn't say his openings were necessarily super impressive. I think his strategy was with both white and black to just get a game. Um, and I guess with black was to just kill the game, but kill it in a very weird fashion in which you cannot really get surprised. Like you do the surprising first, accept, let's say, an objectively worse position, but you know what you're doing, and probably that's going to allow you to equalize. That felt like his strategy, and at the same time, in terms of objective play, he had such ups and downs. The games against Vidit, um, pretty bad. I mean, especially the one where he lost with the white pieces. That was horrendous. Yeah, he lost out of the opening. At move 10, he was lost with the white pieces. But then he also, I guess the game against you was really good. But outside of that, like, I don't know. He was quite a dilemma. Let's just put it that way.
Well, okay, so let's say, actually, I thought that we would go players like one by one, but we're starting with one of the players who has scored best. So we're starting with Hikaru. Okay, um, we can do it this way. Hikaru, generally speaking, he's a player who has a lot of qualities, and he has a generally very high level. His ceiling is high, and his floor, he usually doesn't hit the floor.
Mm.
His floor can be low, but he doesn't usually hit that. Which is kind of expected from the like experienced players. Like none of the experienced guys did terribly, right? You could say, right? None of us had a bad event.
Right.
Maybe we weren't. Well, we didn't win, obviously. The youngest player did, which was quite interesting. But Hikaru is a player with a lot of experience, a lot of class, and also has a very good practical sense. So he's a very good practical player. He knows how to put pressure on the clock. He knows how to search for chances. He knows how to defend. And yeah, he does have these moments of weakness, but everyone does. His moments were kind of surprising, I have to say, in this tournament. Like you mentioned, like losing out the opening with White doesn't really happen to him. But it's what I would not have expected. Like I would think maybe that he would struggle to find chances because his like openings maybe don't have the bite
Mm-hmm.
that is necessary to sometimes beat a player like I don't know Jan or Pragnanta or Gukesh or but he did get those chances. He just had these weak moments, which I didn't really expect. Now, in terms of his opening strategy, I like the thing is, if you're a good player, then a lot of things work out, right? Even openings which I would consider rather dubious. Like his first round against me, it worked out. He made a draw.
Mm-hmm.
But I would not recommend this to anyone. I don't see the upside, first of all. You accept a worse position where you don't really ever get better. So it's not like you're worse, but okay, maybe at some point I'll get a fight and there's some practicality there. It's like I'm uh I'm slightly worse and maybe I'll make a draw. But you can also do that in other openings with like less downside. And the other thing is that white actually has a lot of ways to play a slightly better position, so you can't really control fully. Like you could try to analyze this to death, but what's the point? You analyze this for a week, suddenly you feel confident after so much work put into this like objectively crappy opening,
Yeah.
and then you just make a draw, and then you have to abandon it because you're never going to play this stuff again.
So
Like I don't see
during the
the point
game,
to
were
that.
you obviously you were surprised, but were you pleasantly surprised that he played this, that he chose this?
Yeah, of course. Like he plays this, I'm pretty happy. I mean, I don't remember anything, I don't know anything, but I know that I'm going to get a slightly better position, and that's more than you can say for most of the other openings that we considered from him, like the Berlin, or or uh, or if he was going to surprise me with like something very good like the Petrov. That's kind of annoying, you know? That's like you don't want to see that. Maybe you don't want to see the Najdorf,
I guess
but
I'm trying to remember which ones were the openings that we expected. Sicilian, but one of the main Sicilians was what we expected from him. We were expecting Najdorf. Um,
okay, so the thing is like Hikaru, um, he's been a Berlin player for a long time, so you always consider like he can play the Berlin, and you basically can't refute it. So okay, it's a good opening. What are you gonna do?
yeah.
Try to get some small idea and try your best. And if we go back in history, of course, he was a Najdorf player, but we're going back like 10 years or more.
Hmm.
And more recently, he branched out into various little Sicilians, like some Rose Limos. He actually played something against Gukesh in this tournament with G6, some kind of sidelines of Sicilian, which are not that bad. What he did against me is it's like it's not as good as the Rose Limo. The Rose Limo, it's a bit like you're giving your opponent a bit more than maybe in the Berlin,
Hmm.
a bit more of an edge or some a bit more chance to play for a win. On the other hand, if they play for a win, you get a very tough fight. And that's the point of the Nighthawk the same. It's like, okay, you give your opponent a huge amount of options, but if they want to play for a win, they probably have to take some responsible choices in the opening. They have to play some sharp positions. Now, the one that he played against me, it's like, okay, you give me a slightly better position, and what do you get? You don't get chances to win. You don't really get much in return. And then he abandoned this opening, which objectively he actually almost lost the game.
Hmm.
So he was much worse at some point, basically objectively losing. And then he made a draw and then he abandoned it. I don't see the points of this. But okay, for one game, it sort of worked out, kind of.
Yeah.
And and then if we're continuing with his like games, in the first four rounds, I was thinking like Hikaru is not here to win this tournament. He loses from the opening against Vidit. He plays the exchange Slav against Nijat. Against Prague, he like gets absolutely nothing with white and just makes draw in like I don't know, an hour.
Yep.
It was like a nothing game.
Yep.
And then things like from rounds five until nearly the end of the tournament, he was the best player in the tournament, I have to say. I mean, he got this basically like huge chance against Ali Reza. Like, okay, the game's complicated. They're both playing well. Then it's a draw, logical result. And then Ali Reza makes a huge blunder. And this was the convergence between Ali Reza's tournament and Hikaru. Before
Hmm.
this, they were both on the same score.
Hmm.
After this, Ali Reza was like super tilted and Hikaru was inspired. And then soon after that, he like beat me. He had some very good prep against Jan. It was like a good pressure game, which didn't work out. And suddenly he's like very much back in the fight, right?
Yep.
With some good fighting chess and so on. So it's hard to judge Hikaru's tournament. I mean, he did some things well, he did some things poorly. Overall, of course, he was in the fight, so it was his best candidate's performance.
Yep.
We just have to say it was like he was in the fight up to the very last round, and +3 is a good result, and um, kind of the level we expect from Hikaru these days. So a good overall level, a good tournament from him, and
Consistent.
good game, for example, against Ali Reza, right? And against Prague, very good game against Prague.